All right, welcome to the Brand Identity Design Business Podcast. My name is Jason. I am your host for today's show, and I have been doing this series called as the Dark Side of Entrepreneurship for about 1.5 year, I guess. 2022 is when I started. Uh, I know the title itself is a little scary, but to be quite honest, I just used it because it's a catchy word. It just grabs people's attention. There's nothing really dark about the show. The aim of the show is to educate entrepreneurs like you, myself, and people who are listening about business, share ideas, recommend strategies on how to deal with adversities while running your business, ideas about how you can make money, do something interesting, unique, stuff like that. I do this by interviewing high level business executives who are willing to share their personal and professional experience with my listeners. So I want to actually, get into the show directly because we have a very interesting topic. How can hiring ghostwriters elevate your brand? I've never interviewed anybody who is a ghostwriter. I've never met anybody who is a ghostwriter. Fortunately, LinkedIn was able to showcase this specific profile of Danielle, and I reached out to her and I was like, can you be on my show, because I really am interested in knowing about ghostwriting, what this thing is all about, how it works, stuff like that. She agreed. We've been planning, scheduling things, and August 30th, that is today, we decided to do this live interview. So thank you so much, guys, if you're joining in. This podcast would be interesting for business owners, content creators, or simply people who are curious about books, writing books, learning about what ghostwriting is in general, or anything about related to communication. Danielle will be able to give you a fresh perspective on how these things work and who gets, how you can get benefit by doing this and what kind of impact it has on the market. If you're wondering who Danielle is, she's a soul aligned ghostwriter and award winning best selling author. She empowers companies' founders to amplify their lasting legacies by unleashing non-fiction content, creating a profound impact and transforming lives. With a wealth of experience, she has contributed over 20 books, ranging from memoirs, thought leadership books to business and personal growth books. Additionally, she provides book and story coaching, editing, consulting service to C-suite executives, ensuring their messaging is concise, beautifully and genuinely authentic. And Danielle has been actually doing this since 2008. She has a very impressive portfolio that includes hundreds of articles, books, social media contents, e-newsletter, and more. Her journey, and we will be speaking about her journey, like how she started off with this, very soon. Her journey began with working with overnight shift at Chicago Tribune Company, but her talent and dedication soon led her to excel in corporate digital marketing roles. Notably, she contributed her expertise to Albert Whitman and Company, a prestigious children's publishing house. Harnessing a powerful combination of mindset techniques, exceptional editing, and adept interviewing skills, Danielle brings her unique touch to the table. She incorporates quantum healing modalities to ensure clients' transformative journey results in beautifully crafted, publishable book. Which they will cherish for a lifetime. And now, in her leisure time, she enjoys various activities, free time like swim. On her free time, she does things like swimming, yoga, spinning, cycling, boxing. She loves being outdoors, spending time with her husband and two children, cherishing those precious memory and moments together. So, a big round of applause, guys. Please virtually, let's make some noise for Danielle. Thank you so much for being a part of my show.
Thank you so Thank you so much, Jason, for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm so delighted. This episode is gonna be fire, guys. So let's get into this right away. Danielle, I would love you to share your journey with your listeners. How did you end up becoming a ghostwriter? Where did you get this idea from? What
hmm
inspired you to get into this? Tell us a little background. And why do you call yourself the soul aligned ghostwriter? It's a very catchy name. I just want to know how you came up with this.
Thank you. I will address the first question initially, and we will get to the soul aligned ghostwriter aspect of the question in just a bit. So, several years ago, I was nursing my son at 1 in the morning. He is 5 years old now, and he had not been sleeping. I had been putting my business to the side because of lack of sleep, and I was just in a bad mindset. I didn't think that things could get better. And I had this epiphany one night, and I heard a voice, no joke, tell me that I needed to hire a sleep coach and a business coach at the same time. So the following week, I did that. I hired a business coach and a sleep coach in the same week. And although my husband wanted to murder me at the time, we are still married. I am very, very happy with that decision because that allowed me that guidance that I needed and that push to become the person who I am today. I have, as you said, and thank you for the wonderful introduction in my bio. I have a very, very, very long background in writing and editing. I've been writing and editing for over 18 years. I have been in the journalism field for many, many years, and I desperately wanted to figure out a way to work on manuscripts using my listening and storytelling skills, and of course, my writing and editing skills along with those. So I figured out a way to get my first book coaching clients. And my very first book coaching client came from my temple. I went to the local writers group at my synagogue, and I had my first two clients there. I charged pennies, of course, as we all do when we start out. And I learned a lot from those experiences, very much pre pandemic, very much in person networking. And I started to give speeches at the local Rotary clubs, the local libraries. I started getting clients that way. And then I also entered more into the online space. And that's also where I met my second business coach, who I actually worked with for a couple of years. And she will make an appearance in this story because of the soul aligned aspect of this conversation. And I really wanted to continue to use my storytelling, listening, writing, and editing skills in a multitude of ways. And to do that, I discovered that there was a need for ghostwriting. I was meeting a lot of individuals who did not have the time or energy to perform what they needed to do to get their manuscript in the best shape it could be in. They either did not have the writing skills, did not want to learn how to do it, or did not have the time to sit down and do it themselves. And through those experiences, I recognized and realized that ghostwriting was a possibility for me. And a few years ago, I started doing a cold messaging campaign on LinkedIn. And I was very, very comfortable reaching out to strangers who I thought might want a book one day, might need some help with writing and editing. And I just asked. I said, do you know anybody who might need a ghostwriter? And surprisingly, a lot of individuals responded positively. This was not a cold pitch. This was not a cold sales message. And we've all been there. We've all gotten those. And I don't recommend doing it that way. I recommend the human to human connection. And that's how I got my first couple of ghostwriting clients, is through LinkedIn and networking. And a few years ago, when I started this ghostwriting journey, I discovered that I truly wanted to incorporate spirituality in this process. I was I was working with a lot of memoirists who felt it was difficult to reopen those wounds, those experiences that were traumatic for them. I have worked with multiple individuals, primarily females, who have gone through abuse, neglect, all different types of very difficult situations. And sometimes I found that meditation and utilizing various spiritual techniques was a way to unearth those vulnerable stories and develop that trust and that loyalty between us. So, what I did was with my then business coach, it was my second business coach, she helped me come up with the name, the Soul Aligned Ghostwriter. And I received a quantum energy healing certification through one of her programs. And to this day, I still provide oracle card readings, meditations, and a no judgment listening zone, I like to call it, for my clients. I approach all of my clients, all of my services with two prongs, I like to say. One is spiritual and one is logic. And in order to get to the soul aligned aspect of any of the projects I work on, we have to look at both of those prongs. And in order to do that, we have to look at our deadlines and our goals and deliverables on the logical or masculine side. And then for the spiritual side, for the feminine side, we look at what is going to help unearth those vulnerable stories and those memories that may be very, very deep and very difficult to unearth because they've been buried for so long.
Thank you, Danielle, for sharing that extremely long journey from nursing your son, hiring a sleep coach and business coach, getting your first book clients, giving speeches at a library, getting those clients over LinkedIn, and finally getting the name of the Soul Aligned Ghostwriter. What a beautiful and interesting story. That was quite a journey. A really long time, really. You have to be really disciplined to do this. I think it took you a lot of courage, discipline, and persistence to reach till here. So that's really hard work. Kudos to you on that, Danielle. I sincerely
Thank
appreciate
you.
that.
Thank
So, so I wanted to, say, guys, if you're listening, if you're enjoying this conversation, we're going to be have a jam-packed session today. We want to be getting into this ghostwriting. I'm sure many of you guys may not understand this term, so we will be dissecting this for you guys. So if you're listening, if you're enjoying this conversation, there's a share button. If you're on LinkedIn mobile, you can share this space to your post, to your feed, as a post, or you can invite some of your friends to join this conversation. Let's help Danielle to spread this word of this live show which we are doing. Let's reach out to as many people as possible. And if you're not following us, please hit the follow button. Please click on our profile and do follow us. If you're interested in following my podcast, click on the three dots on the top, go to the event notes for this specific episode. You should be able to find all these links. So, so, Daniel, before I get into the questionnaire, is there anything you'd like to say before I get into the questions?
No, thank you so much. This is wonderful.
Awesome, awesome. So, let's dissect this. What is a ghostwriter? Like, what exactly is a ghostwriter, and how does this role differ from traditional writers? Help me understand this and help my listeners understand this.
Yeah, thank you. Great, great question. So, my definition of a ghostwriter is for when somebody is writing on behalf of somebody else, and the someone else, the client in this case, usually it comes down to our resources that we have in life. And the client simply does not have the time or energy to write whatever materials they're outsourcing themselves. It is a way for a writer to utilize their skill set and help somebody else outsource what they don't want to do. It's the same idea as outsourcing anything in life. We outsource cleaning of our house. We outsource childcare. We outsource a lot of various activities in our life. Ghostwriting can be one of those activities. The other reason as to why someone hires a ghostwriter, and this also goes into the question of who a ghostwriter is the fact that a lot of these clients who are hiring ghostwriters don't want to learn the skill set of writing in their authentic voice. And it can be a difficult skill set to gain and know. And writing an email or writing a speech or writing for various activities, those are all great skill sets, but it's not the same thing as sitting down and writing either content for your brand or a business or leadership book or memoir, right? They're all very, very different in terms of style. So a ghostwriter is somebody who really just helps get those stories out of that individual. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it does. It does. So it does not mean that people are just hiring you just because they want to publish a book. It's also possible, from what you just said, it's also possible that they don't necessarily have the skill set to do it, and they may not have the time or resources available to make it happen. So they need this extra hand. Like any other outsourcing you do, that's how you end up hiring a ghostwriter, right? So I get it now. That's what a ghostwriter does. So
Exactly.
why should a company or an executive consider hiring ghostwriters apart from what you just shared? Like, at what point do you think, uh, you know, we should consider, like, now it's time to bring a ghostwriter, and how can, these ghostwriters help them to achieve or accomplish some of their goals? And what could be those goals according to you? Like, because you have worked with
Yeah.
so many people, can you give us some more context?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a couple of different ways that you know that you need a ghostwriter. One is when you look at your to-do list and you say to yourself, "Oh my gosh, I don't know where I'm going to even start. I don't know what stories to put into this book. I don't know how I'm going to organize all of the information that's in my head onto the paper." If you have any of those questions, those are the questions that my clients come to me with. Okay, so that's one aspect. Another is when you tell yourself that you're going to write this book, you're going to write this content, and it's January and it's been on your to-do list, been on your to-do list, and then all of a sudden you get to Q3, you get to now, and you say, wait a second, I have not made the time to write this content or even start this book. And I've been wanting to do this for 6 or 9 months, maybe even longer. I'm working with a client soon, she's starting in October, who told me she's been wanting to write this book for 18 years. And this is not uncommon where people come to a ghostwriter and say, I've been wanting to write this book for years. It's been on my to-do list, but it gets buried because of everything else and all of my other responsibilities. So those are the two ways that you know that you might want to consider hiring a ghostwriter.
That makes absolute sense. So that's pretty crystal clear. So busy schedule people who have a lot of things running in their plate. These are the individuals who should consider hiring a ghostwriter, or they just simply been delaying their dreams and it's not happening. So those are the individuals you should go with. Now, when somebody ends up hiring a ghostwriter, at any point of time, do you think the individual can feel that, this is cheating, or maybe I'm not being authentic, I'm not being true to myself, something on those lines?
Mhm.
Like, how do you tackle that emotion which might, so for example, I want to be authentically me, and I want things to be done my way. And if I end up, asking somebody else to do it, I might not feel that it's my content, like it's coming from me. So, like,
Right.
so you have spoken to a lot of clients. You know what I'm trying to say. So, how what do
Yeah.
you say to those individuals?
It's a really great question. And I'm so happy that you brought this up because we talk about this constantly with clients, with other ghostwriters, with others in our industry. And the thing is that you have to realize is that you can mimic somebody else's voice if you know them, if there's that know, like, and trust factor. So, what I do when I'm in a ghostwriting engagement is I need to know everything there is to know about that individual. I just spoke with somebody the other day who said, they have recordings of this person's life because of various circumstances. And I said, great. I want as much information as possible because I need to understand and know not only the stories, but how the stories were presented. I need to understand the characters involved, especially if we're talking about memoir. I need to understand how conversations have gone in the past with these characters. I need to understand the tone in which they speak to one another. And I need to understand the stories and from their perspective. So the first couple of months, I always say is the hardest because we have to learn as much as possible about one another, particularly me learning about them. I say I like to become my client's best friend because I need to develop that credibility with them. And in order to do that, they also need to open up to me so that I can understand their vulnerable truths, their vulnerable stories. And I also request in the very beginning of any engagement that I receive any media that they've been in. So if they're a powerful leader, if they have been on the TEDx stage, if they've been in other speaking engagements, if they have courses, any of those types of things, then I want access to those so that I can understand them and their stories and their voices even further.
Sorry, I was looking for the mute button. All right, so that makes sense. So as a ghostwriter, it is possible for you to spend quality time with this individual, get to know them, and eventually have the ability to carry out things in the same language and voice and style which they use. You would be able to apply the same tonality to the whole thing. That's really cool. Okay, that's
Yeah.
super super cool. I love this. Can you help my listeners, and can you walk us through a typical ghostwriting process, since we now understand what ghostwriting is and what happens? So help us understand the process.
Yeah, absolutely. So the time frame varies significantly based on the word count of the manuscript and the genre. If we're talking about a short business book that's 25 to 30,000 words, then that's going to be a much shorter engagement, closer to 4 to 6 months. Then we're talking about memoir, which could be 80, 90,000 words, a very long engagement, possibly 9 to 12 months. And those are all questions that we need to uncover and understand in the beginning of the process. Usually, I like to preface that any type of book that I work on will usually take between 4 and 12 months, depending on those factors that I just laid out. And of course, there are exceptions. I did write a book in 3.5 months last year, and it was a lot of work, and it turned out great. It was a great engagement, but those are the questions that we have to uncover and work out between us. And so, in terms of what happens in the first few months, we have an onboarding session that usually takes about 90 minutes. And in that onboarding session, I like to interview my client based on the information that I have so far. So they send me materials, like I mentioned before, they send me press releases, media, all of that. And I review it before onboarding. And then our main goal is to come up with an outline, specifically if we're talking about self help, personal growth, thought leadership, or business. If we're talking about memoir, it's a bit of a different animal. And I don't have to go into very specifics here, but because of the individualized process with memoir, we usually come up with character profiles, scenes, settings, different things that we need in order to figure out what that outline can be. With the other nonfiction genres, besides memoir, then we come up with that detailed outline and what I like to call a story bank of ideas. And within that outline, we come up with our framework, our stories, our descriptors. What do we need to target that audience, that readership? Who are we talking to? What are the goals of the book? And what are the main themes or messages that we need to uncover and dive into? So, those are some of the things that we do, especially in the first few months. And then, of course, there are specific deliverables based on those time frames that we just talked about. And those deliverables include the first half of the first draft, feedback, final draft. I do also include a developmental edit in my process, and I work with multiple editors who are wonderful, and I love getting another perspective on the manuscript before we hand in the final copy.
So it's like a really lengthy process. It's as good as me figuring out, like, doing identity design for my clients. Like, you have to really sit and understand what they want to do. So it is quite a comprehensive and complex process. A lot of things and moving parts here. So Daniel, I'm just curious now. See, I'm guessing the people who would end up hiring you are already busy with their business and things which they are doing on a day-to-day basis. uh, is the duration of 4 to 12 months, you highlighted it, is it because they are busy and they may not make it on time and we may have to reschedule a couple of times? Is that the reason why you have that duration, like 4 to 12 months, because you may not be able to sit and get all the information at one stretch?
That's exactly it. And I do have options to, I like to say, speed up the process, like VIP days. And I do offer those if somebody wants to speed up the process and wants the outline very, very soon. Whether or not they want to go the book coaching route or the ghostwriting route, because I do offer multiple services in those realms. But yeah, I really like the idea of ensuring that I'm doing my due diligence and they're doing their due diligence. And it does take a lot of time to do the writing and to understand what we're working on. And if I'm responsible for research, then that takes a lot of time as well. So even if somebody can write 500 words in a half hour, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's only going to take that long, because you're not factoring in research, you're not factoring in the interview time. So it does take a good amount of time to be able to come up with that content and that draft. And it's not something that I believe can be done in a very short period of time, or at least done well, in my opinion.
Okay, that makes sense. You had used the word called development edits towards, like, previously. Could you help me understand why do you call it developmental edits, and what exactly do you do in this specific step?
It's a great question. So there are a lot of different types of editing. I won't necessarily go through all of them right now, but I can tell you that a developmental edit is working on the overall organization and story structure of the manuscript. So I actually have a Google sheet that I have provided to others in the past. If anybody listening who is interested in learning more about what a developmental edit is, I'm happy to share that with you. So just message me on LinkedIn and let me know, and I'm happy to send that to you. But the developmental edit is where it's not only about the story structure and organizational elements and aspects, it's about looking at all of the transitions, understanding how and why certain parts are located in chapter 2 versus chapter 4, and asking those questions and suggesting changes.
All right, so this is cool. That kind of gives me clarity, and I hope the audience listening to this conversation, I hope they are also finding this beneficial. Now, moving on to my next question. You work with so many clients. Have you ever, and this is, I'm not saying people are different, right? Have you ever encountered anybody who might be hesitant to give up control of their content to a ghostwriter? And I don't want you to give me specifics like client name or anything.
Mhm.
Tell me in general, like, somebody who's a little stubborn and they're like, I don't want to give you all that info which you're asking. And how would you go about that? Help my listeners understand.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, if somebody comes to me and has trouble with it, there's usually a couple of things going on. One is there's usually a mental block or a mindset block somewhere. So, we have to figure out if that person has the availability to unblock that so that we can really dig in and understand why they're having some hesitations around giving up control or giving up those stories. So that's one aspect. And then another is sometimes when people feel that way, ghostwriting is not the best option for them. And having a book coach is the best option for them. Having that accountability partner and that coach to understand, how they are doing, what they are doing on a weekly and monthly basis to get to their goals, and that allows the client to give up less control, and it's a different way of working with one another, but you still get a great product if you believe you're a great writer and you're holding yourself accountable. So that's all really important to talk about, and I like to understand that up front, so that I know what type of support somebody is actually going to need in order to accomplish their goals.
That makes perfect sense. Let's talk about the business of writing books. Now, when we started off, like when we were pre-live, and I was talking to you, I was just asking you questions related to books. Like, I was under the impression this is like a big industry and people are rich, and I'm positive some people are becoming rich by writing books. So typically, what you said was is that it's not really something which people do to make money out of. So people who come and hire you for your expertise, either for coaching to write a book or asking you to help them get this done, they're typically not interested in actually making money or using this as a medium to make money. But there are other benefits this book brings by doing this. Could you help us understand this? Like, what is the intention? Like, what is the end goal? What are they trying to achieve out of this?
Absolutely. And that's also a wonderful question. And it's a question that I always ask in any type of exploratory call. Because if somebody comes to me and does not have a goal in mind, then we have to figure out, is the book worth any type of investment at this time because of the lack of goal setting? So we do talk about that. If somebody comes to me and does have a goal in mind, usually the goal is either they have a course that they want to create, they want to get more speaking engagements, If it's a memoir, it could be because of a healing journey that they're on. It could be used as the start of a funnel to funnel people into their programs or courses or teaching methodologies. There's all sorts of ways to use a book in order to establish that credibility and trust with your target audience from the get go. So instead of building, and if you're at a speaking engagement, you were invited to be a speaker somewhere at a large conference, let's say, and you have a book and you're signing books, you get to not only speak to those individuals, but also you get to sign those books and meet those individuals. And those individuals automatically have a leg up knowing that they can read your book and learn something from you. You're teaching somebody in from the beginning of that relationship, and you're starting that relationship strong. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. It makes perfect sense. So, all right, all right. So, that answers my question. So, I appreciate you sharing that. Now,
Thank you.
when an executive or a thought leader, they decide that, okay, let me go ahead and consider, let's go ahead and hire a ghostwriter.
Mhm.
What are the things one should keep in mind or should be alert about to ensure it's like the right person they are hiring to fulfill their needs?
Yeah, great question. So you have to have some type of camaraderie with your ghostwriter. That's number one. And number two is show up. And a lot of people don't understand the necessity of that. But I have had clients in the past who say they want a ghostwriter, but then they're too busy to meet with the ghostwriter. And it's a catch 22, right? You're really busy, you don't have the time or energy to write your book, but then you also don't have time to meet with the ghostwriter. Any ghostwriter, no matter who they are, we're not mind readers, right? We can't read somebody's mind. We have no idea what you are thinking unless you tell us, right? We can mimic your voice once we understand and know you and learn about you and know your content, right? So, all of those things are really, really critical and important to understand. And there are a lot of really amazing ghostwriters in the world. I am in a fantastic group of individuals. I know Tim's listening today. I'm going to call you out, Tim. He's in it as well. It's called the Association of Ghostwriters. And there are a lot of wonderful people in that organization. There's a lot of wonderful ghostwriters. The best ghostwriter for you is somebody who's going to show up and be there for you. And you also are going to show up and be there for them throughout the process. I call it the 80-20 rule, where you are responsible for 20% of the engagement and the ghostwriter is responsible for 80% of the engagement. And it flip flops when we talk about book coaching, right? So it's really critical to get to that 100%. We need that 20% and we need the 80%.
That makes absolute sense. I appreciate you clarifying and helping my listeners understand what to look for and how can how can you realize that this is a good fit and which I should go ahead with it. And Tim, when I start Q&A, you're welcome to join the stage, contribute, comment, or ask Danielle questions if you have any. You're welcome to come out, not just Tim, anybody else listening to our conversation. I have another couple of questions which I would be asking, and then we will start Q&A. All right. So my next question, which I have, is about industry specific jargons or maybe complex ideas. There's certain every industry has a style, like how they speak and how those uh, people communicate. Like as a designer, I speak about typography, kerning, and those kinds. We all have our ways, how we speak, So I want to understand, like, how do you get a hold of those jargons? How does it make sense to you, and how do you apply all that knowledge? Is it like uh, a twister in your head, like with all these things mixed up, and we be speaking to so many people? Is it confusing you by any means? How do you handle all of that? Like, and I just want to know the clutter, which is building up.
Yeah, so in terms of, I guess I want to make sure I completely understand the question. In terms of the like jargon, could you describe what exactly you mean in terms of like what phrases you were thinking of?
So in business terms, if it's a business book, they might use a lot of business terms like entrepreneurship or
Hmm.
revenue or CRMs or something of those. They might use specific jargons to communicate a certain message. Like every industry has a certain
Hmm.
style
Hmm.
of how they speak. So when a person from that specific industry try to reach out to you for help, how do you communicate those complex ideas? How do you make sense of it? How do you understand those
Hmm.
jargons, and how do you end up presenting in a way that you don't get confused? And what I'm asking on the other hand is also like, how are you like maintaining all of this information in your head? I think could be a struggle because that's a lot of insights and information which you're getting.
Yeah, it's a great question. And for me, it's something I feel I was inherently born with or gifted with, the ability to understand and kind of be a sponge for new information. That's part of what I have learned for many years as a journalist. And I majored in journalism in college. I worked for multiple newspapers. When you cover an event or when you need to figure out what information needs to be on the front page of the Chicago Tribune, which I did have to do that for a lot of my shifts, then you figure that out pretty quickly in terms of what information is imperative for the reader to know. And the same logic applies to ghostwriting. And what I do is that's where that framework comes in. So if I don't fully understand a concept, I will research it. I will understand what comp books I need to look at. I will understand what I need to do for my part in order to fully understand the concepts that my authors are bringing to me.
That makes sense. That makes absolute sense. I think if the
Hmm.
ghostwriter does the proper job of, first of all, acquiring and understanding who the person is, getting all that insights, the way they speak, and if they're able to present it, I think it's bang on. And the reason I can understand is because I have bought a lot of books and I have seen videos of those individuals how they talk and communicate generally. And when you read the book, it's completely different. It just seems like two different individuals
Hmm.
have written that piece of content. So I don't know if that makes sense, but I have personally experienced that. So
Hmm.
maybe the ghostwriter did not do a good job there.
That's possible, or it's also possible that the individual has a very different speaking voice than writing voice, and that's something too to consider.
Oh,
And
can you
that
can you let's build up on that. Can you help me understand that? Like, let's actually
yeah.
let's go. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So to me, we have different ways of talking to individuals, right? So I have different ways of talking to different family members, as I'm sure you do. And I have different ways that I talk to different friends because I talk with one friend about one subject sometimes, I talk with another friend about a different subject. It's very similar in business where we have a speaking voice and we have a writing voice, and they overlap and mesh, of course, because it's still your voice. But some books are written in the written voice, and some books are written in a speaking voice. A great example of a speaker who writes in her speaking voice is Jen Sincero, the You Are a Badass series. I love that series. I think she does a fantastic job. And I have not worked with her. I have never met her actually, but I really, really love her process and what she has done with her brand and building her speaking voice into her writing voice. And a lot more people are doing that nowadays, but sometimes people are still stuck on that writing voice and making it sound a specific way that they think they need to sound. So Now, it's more encouraged, I feel, in the marketplace to write as though you're speaking directly to your audience. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. It makes sense. Speaking voice and writing voice could be entirely different. Yes, I think it. I
Yeah.
understand now. All right.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I'm going to be opening up the floor in about 5 minutes. If anybody is interested in coming up, now is the time. Please raise your hand. I'll bring you up. Please be respectful to my guest. Otherwise, we are going to kick you out from this space. So yeah, and just letting you guys know, this conversation is being recorded. So by coming up, you're giving us consent to be recorded. My next question I have for you, while we are waiting for people to join, is that how can is there a point, okay, that these individuals, these executives and thought leaders, ever think of giving you direct credits, like letting them know that yes, I took help from a ghostwriter and I want to give them credit so that they don't come off as inauthentic? Does that happen, or?
So it has not happened to me as often. If somebody is working in a different capacity as an editor or a coach or a book collaborator, occasionally I do know that it can happen where the individual wants to give credit or give an acknowledgement to the ghostwriter. But a lot of times I talk with individuals who, we have NDAs, and the majority of my clients have never wanted to reveal the fact that they have had a ghostwriter. They have very much wanted to take the credit because in reality, the book is from them, right? The ideas are from them. I am merely the catalyst in organizing the ideas and writing their ideas. And that's how you can kind of think about ghostwriting as well, is it's still your ideas inherently, but you're getting help with how those ideas are organized and molded and shaped.
That makes sense. That makes sense. If I was one of those individuals who wanted to ever, get a hold of a ghostwriter for my book,
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
definitely go and say that yes, I would like to give credit. That would be me. All right. So, anyways, so we don't have anybody who's raising their hand. So what we're gonna do is let's take a break. Let's do a sponsor shout out. I'm a little
Okay.
thirsty. I'm gonna drink some water. I'm gonna allow Danielle to have a sip of water too, and we will continue the show. I have extended interview questions if nobody comes up. So okay, so let's hear a sponsor shout out. Carla J Howard, who is my new sponsor. So let's hear from her.
Are you a professional speaker who has been dreaming about getting paid for the value that you deliver for your talks and workshops? If so, the Get Paid from the Stage program was created for you. During our 6 weeks together, I will give you all of the tools, templates, and guides you need to build a speaker package that will get you noticed. You'll learn the sweet spot for pricing your talk, how to negotiate with event organizers, and how to ask for additional value that you are missing out on. The next Get Paid from the Stage program starts on October 14th. Be sure to sign up soon because seats are limited to no more than 10 participants. Be sure to mention Jason's podcast when you register, and that will give you a 1-hour one-on-one with me at no additional cost. I can't wait to see you get paid from the stage.
So that's Carla Howard. She's a sponsor, and she is a fantastic strategic change consultant, a professional speaker, a dream enabler. She has been on my podcast. She spoke about how to become a 5-figure speaker. I know she knows her stuff. She knows her thing. Please listen to the podcast, and I would highly, highly encourage you folks to get into that get paid from stage 6 weeks transformative program. It's not too expensive. I think it's about 3200 or 3300 USDs. The registration link is on the show notes or the event notes. You would be able to find it. I also want to let Amy know, who's been raising her hand. Amy, I've been trying to bring you up, but LinkedIn is not allowing me. I would recommend that you leave the room, come join back, and we should be able to help you out. And in the meantime, like a radio show, I'm going to play some music. Let's play a song, and then we will begin our interview again. All right, all right, all right. Okay, so let's pause that song. Okay, all right, so let's start. So, Amy, finally, we were able to bring you up. Congratulations, you are up. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
So I see that you are an integrated marketing strategies, brand marketing. So a lot of wonderful things I see there. So do you have a question for Danielle, or would you like to
Um,
comment or contribute?
yeah, I have a question. I am also have a writing background. I've done a lot of writing for like via companies and freelance, but I've never had a traditional journalist role or as a job. Um, and so if I have done some ghostwriting for like CEOs and things as part of a job with articles, but if someone wanted to pursue, more ghostwriting, what kind of like opportunities are out there? How would one kind of explore to get more involved with opportunities? And then secondly, is ghostwriting, would you say, more of a, I guess, quote, stable option than the traditional journalist industry right now, which feels not stable?
Hmm. Great questions, Amy. It's so nice to meet you. Thank you so
Thanks.
much. In terms of the first question, oh, I think is is my audio acting strange, Jason?
I can hear you.
You can hear me
Yeah,
okay?
yeah. So
Okay.
Amy, you have to be on mute because we are recording the line, so it's gonna give back feed. Okay, go ahead.
Got it. That's what it is. Okay. Wonderful. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So, in terms of the first question, I would recommend a few different things. One is you can always shadow a current ghostwriter. So that's something if you are ever interested in doing, please message me and I'm happy to kind of walk you through what that would look like. There is an organization that I mentioned previously called the Association of Ghostwriters. And that is a wonderful organization run by a lady named Marsha. And that's a great one to get involved with. In terms of starting out ghostwriting with books, I have worked with somebody who has a ghostwriting agency and does ghostwriting for CEOs and executives, mainly on LinkedIn. And she had an opportunity to ghostwrite a client's book and came to me and said, I need some coaching on how to do this. And I coached her and sent her my current contract negotiation. I sent her some questions that I would ask. I was even on her onboarding call and helped figure out what questions to ask and how to frame the conversation. A lot of it has to do with your mindset. And if you believe that this is something that you can do, then you'll be able to do it. So I recommend a gratitude practice, affirmation practice, and really into doing those self care type routines so that you can really elevate yourself and your brand and what you want to do business wise. And then I believe the second part of your question was in terms of stability. So a lot of ghostwriting, it can go up and down depending on your marketing efforts and depending on what you are doing to gain those referrals and gain those clients. So it's very difficult for me to say whether or not it would be stable all year round. I think again, it really depends on whether or not you have everything in order in terms of when you are starting a project and when you're in draft phase, when you're in final phase, when if you have a gap in your schedule, why that gap exists, and understanding the business side and the business portion of how you're gaining clients and how much you're charging and why you're charging the amount that you're charging, what your deliverables are. There are a lot of questions to go for that. Does that all make sense? Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that was really helpful. And I didn't know that shadowing was an option. So I would definitely be interested in
Perfect.
messaging you to see what that's like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, please message me after this and we'll get something set up. That would be fun.
That is so lovely. So Amy, do you have a follow up question, or would you like to ask Daniel anything else?
No, not right now. I'll message Danielle if anything else comes up.
Awesome, awesome. You're welcome to stay on stage. All right, Daniel, what I like to ask you is about the future of ghostwriting. What
Mm.
kind of trends are you seeing as a ghostwriter with this whole AI thing coming into place? Okay,
Mhm.
what do you feel, ghostwriting is going to evolve into in the long run?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think AI, there are a lot of folks in my industry who don't like the usage of AI. I think it's a tool that's only going to get better over time, and we have to figure out how to work with AI rather than work against AI. Now, that being said, I do believe that AI is a tool just like we have tools for just about everything else these days, right? So we still need that human storytelling element, and AI does not necessarily replace the human behind the story. And that's what's really, really important to remember. Can we use AI to brainstorm? Can we use AI to come up with some title ideas, some subtitles? Can we use AI to do some editing occasionally, depending on what it is? Sure, we can use it for some of those skills and those tasks, but do you want the human also to be able to say, you know what? I think that this particular sentence is not fleshed out enough, and we need to add some more story elements, or we need to add some dialogue here. AI is not going to do that. They're going to, AI might edit to a certain ability, but they're not going to replace the human. So I think in terms of the future, I think ghostwriting is not going anywhere. I think if anything, people are busier than ever, especially post pandemic, because people are traveling more, people are spending more time with their loved ones, people are now, a lot of companies are going back to hybrid rather than fully remote work. There's a lot of reasons as to why people are busier and why individuals might be requesting help with their writing for themselves and or their companies.
I could not agree more. I as a designer, we also encounter the same question. Like, are they gonna take you out of business? The AI thing, and I personally feel, and I watched a video by one of the individuals I really look up to in the place of, like, in the field of design. His name is Christo. He had a Instagram live with Ian, who's is into logos and other stuff. And on this video, the guy said, like, there is a market for everything, so I'm positive there would be a market for the whole AI related content, and there's also a market for the bespoke content, like the one which you create and the one I create. So I
Right.
think we should be okay. I don't think there should be a problem. So
Yeah, yeah. And if somebody wants to have an AI book and put in some information and get stuff, like kudos, that is totally fine. That's not the client that would be ideal for me because I want to work with somebody who wants a quality book and quality work. And AI is the fast track, and fast is not always best.
Well said. Okay, so my extended interview questions, and I would not keep it long. So, when I was reading through your bio, something really stood out. A few quotes, and I want to actually highlight the first thing which I noticed. That was your biggest influence in life, and you said it was your children. So, I would like to know, how did your children inspire you in your journey? Help us understand. Take us back through time. Help me understand what really happened and how did this whole inspiration happen.
Yeah. So back to the very beginning of our conversation when I was nursing my son and I had
Mm-hmm.
that epiphany, I realized that I wasn't being my best self and I wanted to be my best self not only for me but also for my kids. And my kids have taught me so much in terms of patience as well. And any of you out there who are also parents, will understand the nature and virtue of patience with young children and encouragement as well. And I think that it's so critical to understand how we're living our lives, not just for obviously our families, but also for ourselves. And it goes back to that airplane mask analogy, where when the airplane mask comes down, you put on that oxygen mask on yourself first, and then you put it on those around you. So, to me, my children have actually helped me understand who I want to be and how I can become my best self. And even a few months ago, I changed my routine because I wanted to be a better mom and a better individual and a better writer and a better person. And I've been getting up before 5 a.m. almost every day and I work out. And it's changed my mindset and has helped me a lot. So that's a little bit about why I've picked my children for that question.
Isn't that lovely? I mean, I really feel very, very happy for you and what your childrens have done, because they gave you the opportunity to stand up, do your thing, and be the best at what you do. So, such lovely and incredible children. So, I'm very, very
Thank
happy
you.
to hear this. Daniel,
Thank
you did send me a couple of quotes. So, the first quote which you sent me was, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent," Eleanor Roosevelt.
you.
Second one is, "I am right, on time, always." And the third one was, "Long term decisions cannot be made on short term reactions." I want you to actually tell me about all these three quotes and tell me why you like them so much. Let's start with the first one.
Yeah, that the Eleanor Roosevelt quote has been one of my favorite quotes, I think, since high school. And I always come back to it because when we are in a tough situation with anybody in life, we still have our own mindsets. We can make up our own mind. We only have control over our actions and reactions. And to me, that's what that quote represents.
All right, so that's nice. What about "I am right, on time, always"? I don't know who it was
Yeah.
by,
So
but what does that mean?
Yeah, so that's one of my favorite quotes. It's a shortened version of one of my other favorite quotes, which I'll read. It's from Rabbi Hillel, and this has also been one of my absolute favorite quotes since high school. And I love it because of the element of time that we've discussed today. So it goes, "If I am not for myself, who will be for me? But when I am only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when?" And my question for everybody listening today is, if you're thinking of writing a book, why not now? What is preventing you from wanting to take that leap and wanting to write that book now? And really consider and think about it. And this isn't any judgment if you really don't want to write a book right now, or if that's not on the agenda in the next couple of years. I want you to just consider, why not? Why not me? Why can't my ideas matter just as much as the next person who's publishing their book? And
Mm-hmm.
then in terms of the last quote, this is a quote that I believe I heard from a coach or on a podcast a while ago.
I totally agree on the
And
quote because it's 100% accurate.
yeah, I love it. Exactly. And in terms of the long-term decisions quote, so that's long-term decisions cannot be made on short-term reactions. I like to say, if you get a bad piece of news, or if you get a good piece of news, or if you have a difficult decision to make, I was always told to take a breath and walk away for a few moments, at least, maybe overnight, and figure out what that decision should be and how to respond and react. And if you make a quick decision on something that you really should be spending more time on, that might affect negatively or positively a long-term decision, right? So if you get into a college, right? If you get into two colleges, right? That's a very um, common thing to think about these days. You get into two colleges, they're both dream schools, right? You're not going to decide that very quickly based on something short term. Oh, I had one bad experience at this college when I visited this one morning, so I'm going to choose the other one, right? That's not necessarily something that's going to be beneficial or helpful for you in the long term, right? So that's kind of what I like to think about. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. Okay, I know I'm bombarding you with a lot of questions, but I'm really, really curious to know and learn from you a lot more. I want to know about your legacy. So, what is that one thing you want to be remembered for the rest of your life?
Wow, that is such an interesting question. And I love the idea of talking about legacy, but at the same time, I think it's so important to remember to be present and in our present moment, and not necessarily think about what we're going to be remembered by. What I like to think about is how we're acting in the moment, how we're acting in life now. And in Judaism, there's a lot, and I'm Jewish, there's a lot of emphasis on the life that we're living now and being present in the life we're living now. So, in terms of legacy, I like to think of the fact that if you're a kind person, if you're generous, if you're loyal, if you are thoughtful, those are all qualities that I want to be remembered for, right? So that's really, really important to me, that you take a look at how you treat others, and then also how you're treating yourself. Are you treating yourself in the best way possible in order to be your best self? So those are questions I would ask of you today.
That is super cool. Be present. That's the legacy you want to leave. So that is super
Yes.
super cool. So Daniel, have you ever thought of maybe using your own voice and your skill set, maybe ever writing a book for yourself? Maybe a
Yeah.
memoir, maybe some self-help book. I don't know, like ghostwriting book maybe. Have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, I have several works in progress right
Oh,
now.
nice.
So, yes, it's very exciting. I have a nonfiction book. I'm not interested in writing a memoir about myself. Maybe one day if I really feel the urge, but I believe that I can help others in different ways. And I think memoir can be really beautiful and wonderful, if you have an inkling to do it. But I do not have that at the moment. So I have a short story collection as well. that I've been working on for a couple of years, and I'd like to get back to that in the near future. And I have a few stories in there, and that's been really fun to work on. And then I have a children's picture book that I've been working on that I'm hoping to shop around in the near future. So I'm working with a consultant for that because, if I have these services, and I also pay for services when I want help in specific genres and places. So I think that's really important to remember that, I take my own advice. So
All right, all right. I want to ask you a personal question, as a part of the rapid fire thing, and I want to keep it short. So, could you share maybe any of your heartwarming childhood memories or personal experience where you feel resilience played a very significant role?
yeah, so it's interesting to me. Resilient means that that you may have gone through something difficult but you learned a lot on the other side. So I wouldn't say this is a heartwarming memory. I would say this is a difficult time that but resilience played a very important role. So I had two grandparents who on either side, so my maternal grandmother and my paternal grandfather passed away within 10 days of each other when I was in seventh grade. And it was a very, very difficult time for our family. I was 13 years old, and it was a lot to deal with. I was very close with my paternal grandfather, and my son's Hebrew name is actually named after him, which is a beautiful thing that we wanted to do to honor his memory. So, in terms of resilience, you go through something like that and you come out the other side and understand the importance of, like we just talked about, being present and understanding that we don't know how long we're going to have here. Nobody is guaranteed us a specific amount of time, right? And I think that being resilient plays a role in all different aspects of our lives in that way. In terms of heartwarming childhood memories, I love the beach because of how much time we spent in Fort Myers growing up. And unfortunately, the hurricane from was it last year, a couple of years ago, destroyed the hotel that we used to stay at. But that's more of the heartwarming side of the question.
First of all, I'm really sorry to hear about your loss. That is
Well, thank you.
devastating.
Thank
I
you. It was,
recently
it
experienced
was over
somebody
20 years ago now. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
I
So,
recently experienced somebody passing away. It was very close to me, so I now
mm,
I have not understood like how somebody feels. Now I understand. So that's really
yeah,
tough. Back to back. So that's
yeah,
really tough. Now, what I do like to ask you next, Danielle, and I appreciate you sharing that personal story, something and being vulnerable there. I really appreciate that. I read on your bio about this book by Anne Lamott, Bird
hmm
by Bird. I just
yes,
found it very catchy. I think this is more like one step at a time. I think that's what it's trying to say. I don't really
yes.
understand the metaphor, and I've not even read the book. Could you first of all help me understand what this metaphor means? And if you were to give some sort of a talk, a speech on this specific topic, how that might go?
Yeah, and I love that. I think that, it's one of my favorite craft books of all time. I think that it's for the creative mind. And in terms of the metaphor, it's exactly what you just said. It's bird by bird, step by step. And it's in order to understand what our goal is and understanding what those steps need to be in order to reach our ultimate goals, and backtracking and figuring out what that is. So for me, what I have done in the past is I actually love breaking down what resources we have in life that we talked about today. So time, energy, money, mindset. And I like to break those down and bird by bird and have my audience members truly understand what we can do with those resources and how those can negatively or positively impact our writing and our writing goals and how we're moving through the writing process.
That makes absolute sense. I appreciate you helping me understand that, and thank you so much for that explanation also.
Of course.
Yeah, I want to actually give you the opportunity to speak about your business. Tell my audience and my listeners how you can help them out, because you do offer an array of services. I think the website is called as the soul aligned ghostwriter.com. If you don't have a pen or paper with you guys, do not worry. It's on the show notes and it will be also on the event notes. You guys should be able to find it. So, Danielle, structure your business down. Tell me as to what components you can help them out, although you have explained it, but dissect it down in a way so that people can reach out to you for the right things, like, based on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's go ahead. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jason. So, in terms of what I offer a variety of services that will help you to achieve your book writing goals. I have a writing accountability group. The next cohort is going to be starting the end of October. And I have a bunch of lovely individuals in this cohort who are all meeting their writing goals. It's very, very successful, very happy about it. That is a great group to be in if you are working on a book or content and you need an accountability group of other writers and you need some coaching along with that. So I incorporate mindset coaching, book coaching, other aspects while we talk about goal setting and as well as achieving goals. So that's one group program that I offer. My other programs are more individualized, and that includes VIP days. So like we mentioned before, if you want a book outline done, if you are pivoting your messaging for your company and you need help brainstorming and having a reframe, I am the best person to chat with you about how you can do that. I've done that successfully a number of times, specifically this year as well. In the last 4 months, I've had several VIP Day clients who've been very happy and successful with what they wanted to achieve in that and in that space. And then I also offer book coaching and ghostwriting services. So if you want to write the book yourself, but you want support and you want that camaraderie throughout, then that's coaching. If you want somebody else to write the book for you, then that's ghostwriting. And if you want to write a book and you have no idea what type of support you're needing, then that's when you give me a call and you say, Danielle, I would like some type of support and I'm not sure what that is. Can you tell me again what you offer? And I will tell you where I'm at, where my headspace is, and we'll come up with a solution together. Because I'm not going to sell you ghostwriting services if you don't want ghostwriting services. My goal is for you to learn, know, and grow, and for you to get that book out. And I also offer publishing consultations within all of these frameworks. So I have publishing partners. I have a lot of individuals who I can refer who do publishing, who do proofreading, cover design, other types of editing, formatting. If you want to go the agent route, we can also talk about book proposals and querying and agents and all that jazz as well. So I have a multitude of individuals, but I will only refer people who I know would be a good fit for you and your needs.
That is super, super cool. So, guys, if you are reaching out to Danielle, do let her know that you're reaching out to her because you heard about her through my podcast. It does help. It does help with the analytics. It also helps my client to understand whether the podcast or being on my show is beneficial for them or no. I wanted to personally take a moment and thank Eric, Lynn, Tim, Brad, Sharon, Dr. Ashley, Phyllis, Askale, Sakshi, Renee, Cass, Shivshankar, and Ray Ray. Thank you guys for listening in and tuning in. I sincerely, sincerely appreciate your love and support. And thank you so much for being all this while for the whole duration of the show. Now, Danielle, if you want to leave my listeners with one thing, they can take away from this whole conversation, what would that be?
Why not me? Why not you? You can do this. We can do this together. You can have your dreams come true. It's all a matter of if you believe in yourself.
Believing in yourself, I think it makes a hell lot of difference. I think you can actually move mountains if you like by just simply believing in yourself. When there is no hope, I think believing that there is hope, it makes a sizable difference. And believe that you can do it, that also makes a lot of difference. So I appreciate that, Daniel. That is super, super cool. I want to update you folks about the next week's show. I also want to let you know that the podcast, the season 4, which I'm currently doing, will be wrapping up by October the 11th, tentatively. So I have a few episodes lined up. So let's talk about next week, season 4, episode 22. I'm going to speak about the role of user research in product development. So if you're an organization or a company trying to launch a product, you want to understand about user research, this episode is definitely for you. You should be able to find the link to that episode or that event, not episode, but the event, under the event notes on LinkedIn. If you are listening to this episode on Spotify, Google, Apple, or any other audio-based broadcasting platforms, please look at my social handles. You should be able to find it. If you go through my LinkedIn profile, under the featured section also, the updated episodes have been linked. Do take advantage of it. Please listen to some of those shows. I've been really getting a lot of traction and momentum through Apple as well as Spotify. I think I should be able to make the top 20% best business podcast list by the end of this year. And this wouldn't have happened without your love and support. So I just want to personally thank you all for who are listening, regularly sharing. I'm on the top 5% most shared podcast on social media, which I think is phenomenal. And Daniel, without guests like you and the expertise you bring to the table, I don't think my show would have succeeded even went this far. So I want to personally thank you for allowing me to not only get to know you but also learn from you today. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. I've had such a wonderful time, and I am so, so grateful for you and the show and your professionalism, and I appreciate you. So thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, on that note, guys, please take care of yourself. Have a lovely morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you're in the world. Please take care of yourself. God bless you all. Bye.